Hi, I'm here today with Aaron, Ms. NonSequitur. We're going to talk a little bit about deconstruction and mental health. Hi, Aaron. How you doing?
Hi, I am great. Thanks so much for having me. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing just peachy. Me and the beard of empathy just finished a long day of work, helping with people, being a therapist, all that stuff. So yeah, we're gonna jump right in. We'll talk about a little bit about your. We'll start with your religious experience. What was it like for you growing up? Which religious denominations have you been a part of, and things like that?
Well, my religious s- internal structure is really the foundation is I grew up in a very devout, very strict LDS family, mainstream LDS, not the prairie dress LDS, but still a very high demand religion. And my parents were particularly devout and so there was a lot of structure. Everything in our lives revolved around the church. All of our friends and acquaintances, all of our social activities, uh, everything, all of the artwork in our house was LDS themed. So, it was just every single part of my life from before I was born. I mean, my mom literally read scriptures to me while I was in her stomach.
Hmm. That's
Um,
dedicated. That's dedicated.
yeah, yeah. They are very well, my dad's passed, but my mom is still incredibly devout and still my best friend. So, I love her to death despite our disagreements on religion at this point. But, I was always a very curious kid. And I had a lot of questions. Anything that didn't make sense to me, I asked about. Um, which people thought was really cute, precocious, and clever until probably about 7 or so when they started apparently getting annoying
Yeah, about
because
7 years. The 7 years is about all parents can take of the constant questioning before it gets really annoying.
yeah. So I was taught to stop asking questions, which didn't help anything because I still had the questions. And the only answers I ever got were, well, pray about it. We might not be able to know these things until the afterlife. God works in mysterious ways. And oh my goodness, these answers were so annoying to me. They were not good enough because I felt like these were pretty straightforward questions. I mean, I didn't see any good reason why I shouldn't know them now, the answers to them. Things like, let's see. Oh, I remember a big one that I asked a lot about was what happens if somebody doesn't hear about the church before they die? Now, Mormons have an answer to that one, but it wasn't one that made any sense to me. Oh gosh, none of the answers made sense to me. It was just and it wasn't because it was too complicated for me to understand. It was that the answers were bad answers.
Yeah, usually if they're teaching someone that 2 plus 2 equals 5, and the kid realizes it's not 5, it's 4, and they keep asking the question, "Why isn't it 4?" And they keep saying, "It's 5, it's 5, it's 5." It's still wrong,
Right,
and it's not an
exactly.
acceptable answer.
And then I started getting into my teen years and I realized I was queer for one. And I'm like, okay, so why is that so bad? And because it's wrong. I mean, it was completely circular reasoning. It's bad because it's bad. That's the only thing anybody ever had for it. And I'm like, but it's clearly not. Oh, it makes people unhappy. I'm like, I know so many happy gay people. And you know what would make me really unhappy? If I couldn't like boys and girls. That would make me unhappy because I do like boys and girls.
Yeah, the unhappiness comes from being in the closet or being repressed or being oppressed by others. That's where the unhappiness comes from. Living your life as who you are and loving people, that doesn't bring negativity, brings
Right.
positivity.
So throughout my adolescence, as much as I was allowed to by my parents, I more or less ignored the church. Um, there were several uh, teen milestones that are common with. kids in the LDS church that I did not accomplish. And they have things called patriarchal blessings, and they do like youth temple trips to do certain ordinances. And I never was worthy to do any of those things, which, for a teen girl already struggling with mental health and self-esteem, that felt great. That felt real good, being told I was unworthy. And then, of course, there were the purity lessons where we all know the chewed gum story.
Oh yeah.
Um, I also heard the crumpled up piece of paper. Like, if you take this clean white piece of paper and you crumple it up, even if you smooth it out, even if you iron it, it still has creases in it, doesn't it? You don't want to give your husband a creased piece of paper, do you? It wasn't even about us. It was about our
Yeah.
future husbands.
Yeah. It's and that is so damaging because it really hits your sense of self-esteem, but also
Right.
it's just wrong.
And it's stupid because it makes people feel like, oh, well, if I've already sinned, why bother to stop sinning? I'm already tainted. So,
Right.
it was really a very counterproductive way of talking to youth too, I think. And it
Yeah.
certainly didn't work for me.
And physiologically, there's nothing that changes after for the body after sex. So there's nothing. It's not like you're giving
Oh,
a
and
used
masturbation?
piece of paper.
Oh my goodness, the guilt I used to experience over masturbation when it is
Mm.
downright healthy,
It is.
It's just. And, a lot of that I think had a huge impact on my mental health. During this time, I was struggling a lot with my mental health. And I wasn't making any real decisions about whether or not I believed in the church. I was just more or less ignoring it and being annoyed that it didn't make any sense to me. But I think I kind of had the feeling that once I was old enough, maybe things would start making sense to me. I think that was kind of the impression I got. Like, okay, once I'm an adult, maybe I'll get it. And once I was adult, I did try to get it. Um, my mental health, I found a good combination of medication for my depression and anxiety. My ADHD didn't get diagnosed until way later, but so that was still raging. But my mental health calmed down in my 20s, and I decided, okay, I am going to do what everybody told me to do. I'm going to pray. I'm going to read the scriptures. I'm going to ask with a uh, full heart and real intent, I think is the phrase.
Mm.
An open mind, ask for confirmation that it's true. I wasn't quite sure how to do that since I didn't think it was true. Like, I didn't really think
Yeah.
it was true. Yeah, I tried to do everything they told me to do. And when it wasn't working, I would go to my leaders and my parents and I would say, I'm not getting anything. And their answer was, well, try harder,
Yeah. Just
God
try
knows
harder.
what's in your heart. Be more sincere. I'm, I don't know how to do that. And so I did that for a couple years. And eventually I realized that nothing I ever did was going to get an answer. So I figured, okay, Mormonism probably isn't true because I'm doing everything they're telling me to do and I'm getting nothing. So I sort of moved into a vague sort of believing in God, but not really sure what, if any, particular religion might be true. I was used to going to church. I enjoyed the companionship and everything from church. So I tried to seek out other churches. My favorite was Unitarian Universalist because that was the most open and welcoming, and they didn't even seem to mind that I didn't really believe in God exactly, but I did
Been
still believe in God.
it's been my experience with the Unitarian Universalists that they're barely a religion. It
Eh,
as far a representation. It's a lot of it is having a social place to go, which is great. Like it's church for
Yeah,
people who don't want the church side of the church.
yeah, yeah, and, I enjoyed that for a while, um, and then I moved and it was the new Unitarian Universalist church I was nearer to was a lot more churchy. They did a lot
Mm.
more Bible stuff and a lot less of, uh, other stuff from lots of different religions, which the first one I went to. So I stopped going there. And but I remember exactly when well, I remember exactly when I realized I truly didn't believe in God. I think that's the best way of putting it. I was arguing with a friend about the existence of God because while I decided religion wasn't for me, I still was clinging to the God belief. And I was getting really emotional. He was saying, "Well, but God doesn't make any sense because of this, because of that. Why would you believe in God? This makes no sense." And bringing up some very good points. And I was getting really emotional and really frustrated, which at this point would have told me something, but back then I didn't know.
Yeah, that
And
cognitive dissonance.
exactly.
That cognitive dissonance hits hard
And
sometimes.
I was kind of almost crying, and I burst out with, without even thinking about it first, which is really unusual for my ADHD brain. I burst out with, "There has to be a God because it makes me feel better."
That's the best justification ever.
It was but it was the truth. It was the sole truth of it, for lack of a better term. It was truly the only reason I was still clinging to that. And at that moment, it was like a light switch flipped because as soon as I said it, I knew it was a really stupid reason to believe in anything. That's a terrible reason to believe in anything. And I realized that I didn't really believe in God. I just wanted God to be true.
And
And so that's when I realized I was an atheist. And but I didn't really start deconstructing from religion. I kind of just it was kind of a live and let live thing. I didn't really think about it. It didn't bother me. I didn't bother it. I kind of half-heartedly went through the motions to get my name removed from the church records. But back then, this was before all the lawsuits and stuff. They just ignored it because they could.
right.
So I am still on the church records. Um,
I wanted to step back for a second. Um,
sure.
and I just wanted to ask, in that moment when you had that sudden realization that
Yeah.
your only reason for continuing to believe in God was that it made you feel better, and you wanted it to make you feel better. What did it feel like for you in that moment when you had that realization?
I was surprised at myself. I think I was really shocked that that was why, because that's not usually how my mind works. I I I usually have trouble ignoring unpleasant truths.
Mm,
Um, I was kind of appalled at myself. That was another big feeling like, "Oh my gosh, that is no. No, we're better than that." And then after I realized what that meant and that it wasn't even true, that I didn't truly believe in it, I just wanted to, I think I felt relief. I think I was glad for an excuse to stop fighting with myself in my head.
yeah, that's a big thing right there, being able to let go of that inner conflict.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I relaxed. I was able to relax. And I think that's why I kind of just ignored it for probably a decade after that. I just kind of because it was the first time I had ever in my life not been thinking about religion, and my brain needed a decade break
Yeah.
because it was my entire life. Even after I left the Mormon religion, it was still 90% of my life because I was convinced that I needed something and that there was something fundamentally wrong with me that I didn't have this religious foundation. So, and that was pretty toxic for me, I think, because I didn't need more reasons to feel inadequate. My brain learned
Very
that really well by itself.
very few people need help in that arena.
No.
Mm,
And that was what religion tended to do to me because it seemed like everybody was in on this secret and I didn't get it. And now I realize, even then, I think that's what I really realized too, right around that same time, was that They're not in on any secret. They just ignore things better than you do. I realize that to myself.
The secret is buried somewhere deep in the sand that they have their head in.
Right, exactly. There's something down in there, they just have to get their head down far enough.
The reality is you find the secret when you pull your head out of the sand. The secret is just that
Exactly.
there's never been a God. As far as it goes with those kinds of religions, I can't say that there isn't one out there somewhere. I'm hoping it's like Q in Star Trek Next Generation. Like I love that kind of impish idea, like not
Mhm.
like kind of sort of malevolent, willing to mess with people a lot, but just kind of wants to have fun.
The only theory of God I have ever been able to really think is a good possibility is, um, the deist position. I heard what somebody once said, "What if Earth is just like a forgotten science project that some god did in 4th grade and then just left on the shelf, and it's stuck on a shelf in their parents' attic?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that would make more sense than most god ideas." Put it together and then forgot about it.
Yep. Oops. Just dropped it, lost it. It's somewhere. Eh, I'll just do another one over here.
That's how plate tectonics started.
He dropped it and it shattered like a plate.
Exactly.
That's why they call it plate tectonics.
Yes, exactly. I didn't really deconstruct until I realized how dangerous religion is, how much it had damaged me, and how much it damages a lot of people. And that wasn't until I've experienced some personal tragedies in my 30s. And I realized how toxic the way my grief was being treated by my religious
Mhm.
family. And
Tell me a
so
little
I
about that.
I
Tell me about that. Like, what? How was your grief treated?
well, what happened is, I had a stillborn. I lost a child at 34 weeks, and
My condolences.
thank you. It was the most horrible thing that had ever happened to me. And from the time I was in the hospital, I was recovering from a C-section. I was in no shape to fight for what I wanted. So my child ended up getting an entirely religious burial. Got blessed into the LDS church and had an LDS burial because I didn't have the strength to fight against it, but they knew I didn't want it. They couldn't not know I didn't want it because, you know, because they knew I was an atheist. They knew that religion was not important to me. They knew none of my they knew my older child hadn't been blessed when they were born, and they just kind of took advantage of my grief to try and insert their religion into my life. And for the following year, I got more visits from people who were in my ward, like in my assigned church family, checking on me and stuff. And that's very sweet if you look at it one way. But I knew because I'd had these lessons that they encourage people to go try and comfort the grieving and get them to come back to church. And they think they're doing a good thing. But all I kept hearing was, "Oh, well, if you repent, you'll get to raise your daughter in the afterlife." And I'm like, that is not helpful to me.
No, that's not
And
helpful at all.
and I kept hearing things like, "Oh my goodness, I honestly don't know how I would get through it if I didn't have the gospel." And I'm like, "How is this helping me? Because I don't, and you're giving me nothing. Why are you here? You're not helping me. You're not doing anything." They brought casseroles. I appreciated the casseroles, you
Casseroles
know?
are good, especially if it's cooked well. Pretty
And
good.
Mormons do know how to cook good casseroles.
Well, they are kind of out in the Midwest, which is the birthplace of casseroles, I think. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Somebody's in the
No, I
comment
believe
gonna say, no, casseroles were blah blah blah. Like somebody's gonna in the comments talk about casseroles. Uh Just saying. I don't know
England
exactly where they
became
are.
France in 1774.
Right, but the Midwest is very famous for
Yes,
casseroles,
yes, they are.
as it is. Yeah. So, but that's good to have. But the rest of it, like casseroles, isn't support. And
No,
when people are treating you that way, they're centered on themselves, not on you. They're not supporting you. They're
yeah,
virtue signaling at best.
exactly. And like I said, I knew exactly why they were doing it, why they had picked that time rather than anywhere else, and they don't even deny it to themselves that they're trying to I mean, they realize what they're doing because it's baked into the plan. Of course, they're vulnerable. That's why we can talk them into believing in things because they're desperate to have their child back or whatever.
Yeah.
And can they would have had me repenting for things that I don't feel sorry about, things that I'm not doing wrong in order
Mhm.
for a fantasy that I might get to see my daughter grow up. You
Yeah.
know,
A
it's just
dream.
it was so toxic, and it was when I realized that religion isn't just something I can continue to ignore. I need to work on myself, to work on the damage it's done to me, because that made me realize how growing up affected all of my relationships, how growing up in the LDS religion affected all of my relationships, how it um basically my parents were quite good about mental health, to be fair, to be 100% fair to them. They had me in therapy by grade 6 because clearly had some issues. Um, but the general attitude was that if you just pray, you'll get better. And I just I was taught to be a people pleaser, which already comes naturally to me. Mormons are helpful, and if you can't help, then you're kind of useless. I just realized how many toxic things and how many were still lingering. I thought I had gotten rid of them before that, but they were still all right there, informing my my actions and my relationships and my feelings about myself, even to that day. And that was when I got into therapy and I started really deconstructing. I also got here on YouTube and I found the atheist community here on YouTube. And wow, I mean, the line was the first one I found. And it
Mm.
was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need to be listening to. This is what I need to know. These are finally the answers to those questions, even if they aren't the answers I thought I was going to get to them.
The answers are out there. You start hearing people who have been through some similar things to you. And nobody's been through exactly the same thing you have, but there are other people who have deconstructed, who have been through things. Jimmy Snow, I'm sure he's former LDS.
Yeah.
I'm sure hearing him talk, I'm sure helped you quite a bit.
Oh yeah, that was how I found the line actually, was because I saw a little short of one of their things, and in it he was mentioning that he was raised Mormon, and he was so disrespectful, and I'm like, click.
Yeah.
And he's funny too, and humor always helps me. Like, I had looked into some ex-Mormon creators before that, and Alyssa Grunfeld is wonderful, but she's not usually that funny, so I tended not to enjoy her stuff as much when I was first just kind of I I was starting with some of the anger at that point, and so I needed some spicy conversation, some spicy deconstruction at that point, of my deconstruction. I needed an outlet for my anger through other people. So, hearing like hearing Matt Dillahunty go off on these idiots in the same way I always wanted to and could never do. It was freeing. It was, and to Forrest Valkai and Erica Gutsick Gibbon, hearing them just, you know, people say, well, evolution is just a theory, and having them say, yes, but you don't understand what a theory is, and this and this and this is why what you're talking about doesn't work. It was a revelation.
I love Forrest Falcai. You know what I love most about Forrest Falcai is his passion when he starts talking about the things that he really enjoys. Like when he starts talking about evolution and he starts getting into it, and just like the passion that comes out of him, it is infectious. It is beautiful. It is wonderful. It is the most amazing thing.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
he's an amazing educator.
One of my greatest hopes is to actually like end up being on a call with him and witness him do that live, like, and be able to be part of it, just because that's the kind of thing that really brings life to me. Like, I love when people get passionate about things. Like, I love geek societies because geeks get
Oh
passionate
yeah.
about everything. I love it. And this community is very similar. We get very passionate about it. And
Yes.
like I didn't come into the community through deconstruction. I never constructed in the first place.
Mhm.
My parents were lovely. They decided to let their kids have uh, their choice and figure things out themselves. They didn't want to force religion on their kids, so we got to explore. I was exposed to church, but never joined one. It never made sense to me. I'd never believed in it. I kept
That's how
quiet
I'm
though.
raising my kids.
Yeah. I kept quiet though. I never really liked to tell people I was an atheist, or I didn't like to believe, but there was always that little feeling inside me whenever like everybody wanted to pray. And I was just like, what's the point? This is awkward. What the? And, sitting down to dinner with some of my family members who weren't in my immediate family and they wanted to say grace. And it's like, why? I don't get it. Can I just, it's dinner time. I'm just eat my food. Like, why do we have to do this thing? Like, it never made sense to me at all. But I always kept quiet with it because I always get the sense that it's peer pressure essentially. Like there's a societal expectation in America, at least, that people are Christian because the vast majority of people are Christian. And so when you're around people of faith, like they generally don't want to be hear people say they're atheists. They get negative backlash for atheists. There's a lot of negativity that comes to atheists. So I kept
And
quiet.
and I that's what I did for those 10 years. Um I didn't want to offend anyone. I didn't want
Mhm.
to I wanted to respect religion for what it was, but I just didn't need it. But I can't just I can't do that anymore. I know too much. I need to be able to talk with people and think about these ideas, and I know it probably isn't going to change a lot of people I talk to's minds, but I have spoken to people who were in the comment sections of some of these calls and learned things, and it helped them deconstruct or at least get closer to it, or maybe just not even feel so guilty. I've talked to these people who have gotten good things out of listening to other people talk about religion and the back and forth. And so I figure, mm, that's a good thing. Discussion's always a good thing, and not always just
Mhm.
for the people, the two or more people who are actually doing the discussion.
That is something I've noticed in watching shows like The Line, the AXP, things like that, is that
Oh yeah,
very
AXP is
often,
wonderful.
I love AXP. Very often, the atheists tend to be, not that they're not passionate or crude or crass from time to time, or all the time for some of these creators, but that they're still open to listening and discussing and talking. And
Yeah.
most of the things that the Christian apologists and Muslim apologists bring to the table is thought stoppers. They're
Yes.
stop thinking. Don't think about this. Things like his ways are higher is a thought stopper. It's don't think about that. Don't think about the
Yeah.
why. God said it's okay, but right? It
And
all breaks down.
that's why religion never worked for me, even when I was a kid, even when I was at my most vulnerable to this stuff, even when I was grieving. And I would have loved to believe this crap that they were telling me that, I could have my daughter back. I mean, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, obviously. And, that would have been really nice to try and pretend to do, but the cost would have been far too high. The cost would have been my mental health because trying and failing at this religion was really bad for me before, and it wouldn't be any better for me now. I think that there are a lot of ADHD and neurodivergent people in the atheist community because,
Pattern
well,
recognition. It's pattern
yeah,
recognition.
pattern
It,
recognition, and we have trouble ignoring when we see the cracks in a
mhm.
story. We're not good at cognitive dissonance. I mean, probably about some things. There's always our blind spots, but
Yeah.
I feel like neurodivergent people are less good at cognitive dissonance than the average person.
I think part of that is, especially with like the autism side of things, there's very much a lack of understanding of social rules. So there's a internal, at least, or sometimes externally taught coping skill of trying to be very precise with all the rules,
Yes.
and that causes big issues. ADHD has similarly comes from that, but from a different place. Autism tends to be an internal misunderstanding of the rules. ADHD usually tends to be forgetting about the rules and receiving consequences. And then those rules become incredibly important. But the rules we don't
Yeah.
get consequences for very often, we tend to ignore.
And that was the other thing, people kept telling me that sin would bring me unhappiness. And when I would mess up and sin, it didn't. And I would see other people and they seemed perfectly happy. They had happy families, they had happy lives. And I was being told that, no, they're secretly really sad inside. And I'm like,
Right? Because
I think that they are.
I need to remember one of the God powers that Christians get is mind reading. Like they can read your mind as long as they believe and have the faith, they can read your mind. If they lose the
Oh,
faith, they
yeah.
lose the ability.
Because every morning they tell us that we actually do believe in God and we
Uh huh.
hate him.
Yeah. I've been told I hate God so many times. I don't hate fictional characters. These people don't understand just how much I would love to live in a world with a God, with magic in general. Like, I'm a huge dork. Like, right above my head here, that's Han Solo's blaster and an R2 unit I made with my 3D printer. I would love to live in a world with magic so much I made my own
Right.
wand. Right? This is a holdover wand. I love this one because it's got a stick. It's got a pistol grip. Right? I mean that. Right? I made this
Wand with
wand
a
myself.
pistol grip.
Yep, right? It's a totally American wand,
Yeah.
but I made that because I used to love Harry Potter. I can't anymore. I
I
just
know.
cannot. It's been ruined by a turf who shall not be named.
Yes.
Um, and it just the franchise. I loved the franchise. It really did teach me some things. Um, the character of Hagrid was my absolute favorite because
I love
I read
Hagrid.
those I read those books at a time in my life where I was an adult before the first movie came out, and I read the book
Me too.
because I was taking kids to see the first movie. So I wanted to read the book, know what it was all about, and I fell in love with the character of Hagrid because I've always been a big guy. I'm 6'3". When I graduated from high school, I was 330 pounds. I've always been just a big guy. And I always felt that people looked at me differently because of that, and that I was kind of an outsider, that there were certain expectations on the way I acted and the way I portrayed myself that I had to remain just kind of like this grumpy kind of thing. But that's the toxic masculinity that was teaching me, that I was
Mhm.
being taught by society in my early 20s. Uh, Seeing the character of Hagrid helped bring me out of that. I guess saw that a big person can still be not only loved, but just genuinely kind and open
And
about that
gentle.
and open and gentle about that kindness.
Mhm.
I loved that character. I still love the character.
Yes.
It's a shame that so much hatred has gotten linked to that property. Uh,
Yeah. I miss it. I miss what it made me feel like. And sometimes I actually tied to come back around to religion again. Um I think that gives me some empathy for people who truly did believe in a way that I never did. because I expect a lot of them miss the feelings they used to have on a certain level, from religion, and I think that is what causes some people to take so long to leave religion even if they don't really believe it. I mean, I had some of that to a certain extent, and I never even really did believe or have these feelings that I couldn't explain.
The cognitive dissonance keeps them from recognizing certain things. I had a conversation online a few days ago with a gentleman. We went over a four premise syllogism with a conclusion over and over. We went over every premise over and over and over again. We got him to agree to each premise, each and every premise he agreed with. And then we got to the conclusion, no, that's wrong.
Of course.
It
Yeah.
can't be. Like it's flat denial at that point. Just flat
Yeah.
denial. It wasn't, he couldn't even, like, he wasn't rationalizing even. He was just like, no, that's not the case. And then he tried to go back to a previous premise, but he'd already agreed with all of them. And it's just the cognitive dissonance is a block that keeps them from doing it. They turn around and run away from the pain of that loss.
My mother is one of the most brilliant women I have ever known. She has a master's degree in English, but she has this incredible analytical brain that just she has an engineer's brain. She just very smart lady. Just I'll leave it at that. Very, very smart lady. And the other day we were talking and I said something about evolution. My mom said, "Well, yeah, but that's just a theory, right?" And I'm like, "Well, yes,
Wusa, wusa. I got
but it's a scientific theory, like the theory of gravity." And she's like, "Well, yeah, but there's not as much evidence for it." And I'm like thinking, I have never known my entire life. My mom is 80, I'm 44. My entire life, I've never known that my mom didn't exactly believe in evolution. I mean, like it was
yeah.
shocking to my core because I know exactly how brilliant this woman is. And not just brilliant, educated as well. An educated, brilliant woman.
Not in
And
that area.
nope, it was astonishing to me because I mean, she doesn't believe that the earth is only 6,000 years old. And Mormons have a really great justification for why the Bible says that it is. They believe the Bible to be the word of God as far as it is translated correctly. So they get to wiggle out of that one.
There's an explanation. It's not translated right.
They do say man is fallible, and that's why some of the prophets also have said things that they no longer believe. But Mormons love to just kind of ignore that they ever said anything different than what they are saying right now.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, it's getting harder, in this day and age. The CES letter, I don't know if you have ever been interested enough in Mormonism to read that, but it's
I think I've heard of it.
amazing work.
I think I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever read it.
Yeah, it just basically dismantles everything. I mean, it carefully, methodically, um, of course, most Mormons haven't and won't read it because it is
It's a threat to their core beliefs.
exactly, exactly. I begged my parents to read it just to tell me what they thought about it, but nope.
Mm.
They knew they expected me to read everything that they told me to read, but they refused to read anything that I asked them to read.
Right? It's all because they're afraid
Oh yeah.
that the religion, all of these religions, all the Abrahamic ones at the very least, build fear in from the door.
Well, and they tell you to avoid anyone pointing out the flaws. They tell you to actively avoid anyone saying anything negative about belief and religion because in the end the people who made up these rules knew that it was all bullshit.
Yeah, it's amazing how the rules from God always seem to correspond to the things that the people in power want to
Amazing
happen.
how that
Weird.
it's probably just because God loves them so much.
I must be wrong. I get it the other way. It's not that they want the things. God wants to give it to him, so he gives it to him. That's why it just looks like the rules are being made up by the people. God is specifically giving it to them.
In fact, in the Hadith, I'm not very well versed in Islam, so I could have
Mm,
this
not either.
a little off, but I believe Aisha said something to the effect of, "Wow, it's amazing how much God must love um, Muhammad because he gets everything he wants." And it's like, yeah, let's
Yes.
think about that.
It's not a coincidence.
No.
No. Everything he wants, including a 6-year-old little girl. That I, mm, it's problematic. The whole thing's problematic from the Hebrew Bible through the Gospels and the epistles, all of it, and then the Bible part 3, the Quran, and then part 4, the
Book of Mormon.
Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Um, and book 5 will be out at some point. Somebody's gonna
Oh, I'm
manage
sure.
to get it.
When anything is okay as long as God says it's okay, and only one person really speaks directly to God, that one person can do whatever they want and nobody can gainsay them. It just
Hmm.
it I don't at this point I really don't understand how people can't see that it's a great big scam.
The book even says that he's going to send false prophets that are kind of come up with false rules and regulations for you. Don't listen to those ones. But he doesn't tell you how to differentiate between them. So you end up with a whole bunch of people who may or may not be telling the truth. I mean, they're none of them are telling the truth, but when you're a prophet, you can be telling truthful things or you could be telling non-truthful things.
Mhm.
And the people have no way of telling the difference because you're a prophet from God.
One of my favorite things to ask theists is, if God wanted us to know him and know his word and know his wants, why would his only book of messages to us be so flawed? Because that's what they always do. They say, "Oh, well, the Bible was written by man, so of course it's flawed." Like, but why did God let his only message to humans be flawed and be misinterpretable? Why
But
didn't he
also,
make
it's
it just
inerrant.
some right? Well, of course, at the same time somehow.
Yeah. It's flawed and open to interpretation, but it's inerrant. And there are
Oh,
no
we don't care about the
contradictions.
bits about slavery because that's in the Old Testament, but you better not be gay, even though
Eh,
that's in the Old Testament too. And we also like the Ten Commandments,
yeah. Oh, they hate the Christians specifically hate the Old Testament. They really
except for
do.
the bits they like,
Well,
except for the
yeah.
bits they've decided are okay.
I always like to say that most of the Christian apologists that come on have read. They say they've read the Bible. What they've probably read is Genesis or half of Genesis, half of Exodus, and then they jump to the Gospels.
Hmm.
Right. With here or there, maybe some of them stop and read about David and Goliath. Some of them like jump around to a couple of other things, but for the most part, it's just the Gospels forward, and then we go to the Old Testament for that Genesis stuff, half of Genesis at least, up to the Tower of Babel, and then after that, maybe some of them know about Joseph and his Technicolor
Jonah and the
Dreamcoat.
whale. They know all the fun stories that you were taught
Yeah,
in Sunday school.
yeah, all the fun stories that have been on Veggie Tales and
Oh yeah.
taught at yeah right taught and Sunday school because they don't read the Bible, they listen to it as told by other people who pick and choose the stories that were told to them and use those ones.
Yeah.
But it you
And they're
I
always so astonished, like, "You just need to read the Bible." And we're like, "We have."
yeah,
"Oh, well, you read it wrong."
right when you go to Second Samuel, right? David and his concubines, Ahaz taking thing. Like I always laugh a little bit inside when I'm watching one of these shows, like watching Deconstruction Zone, and Justin has somebody and it goes to Second Samuel, and the person listens to him read the passages and they just go, "Wait, what?" Like they have some reaction like they've never heard this story before at all because they haven't. Because pastors aren't going to bring that passage up and talk about it on Sunday morning in the pulpit. Like
Yeah,
that's not something they're going to try and use to promote their congregation up.
and they'll say things like, "Oh, well, they didn't mean chattel slavery. They got out after 7 years." Then you read the part about, "Oh, no. Hebrew men got out after 7 years, but their wives and children had." to stay.
Harriet Beecher Stowe rolls over in her grave every time a Christian says that. She's the one who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin,
Yeah.
1853 novel that outlines how slavery is slavery is slavery is slavery. It doesn't matter what kind of slavery you think it is. It's wrong, it's bad, and it's damaging. It was such an influential work, but they haven't heard of it, I guarantee. And just saying, oh, it was just indentured servitude. Well, no, that was for the Israelites. Foreign people could still be chattel
For
slaves.
the men
For the men,
Israelites.
not the women.
Yeah,
Women,
not the
well,
women.
that's the thing I always try to remember is in the book, like women aren't people in the book, in the Bible. Women are not people. They're property. It's outlined as property, and everything that has to do with women in that book is as them as
Including the Ten
property,
Commandments.
including the Ten Commandments. Yes. It lists women in the middle, not at the beginning where I could like of a list. Like it's a list of things that are all property, and women are at the beginning of that list, or not at the beginning of that list. It's like your home, then your woman, then your male and female slaves, and then all of these other properties. These things. Women aren't even listed first grammatically, so you can't even say don't covet your neighbor's wife
Or
or his property.
right.
It's don't go after his home or the other bits of his property. Right? And women are just listed amongst the other bits of property. It's horrible.
The LDS religion is worse than a lot of people as far as the gender um binary, the enforced gender binary goes. And that has definitely affected my mental health. Women are raised from birth to be facilitators, to make life run smoothly for everybody else in the house. I was the only girl, so me and my mom took care of everything. We made sure that they didn't have to worry about it. Sure, they mowed the lawn and, did all the boy stuff, but we had to make sure that there was gas for the mower. We had to make sure that, say, "Oh, the lawn needs mowed. Better mow it this weekend before it rains." I mean, I didn't so much as my mom when I was young, but I was raised to see 90% of the work being the woman's job, and but not getting the credit either. And that was just normal for me, and it showed up in um my relationships, which have usually been more one-sided than is healthy. I'll leave it
Mm.
at that.
Yeah, I think the religion bakes in several ideas that formulate that way, and these ideas are incredibly damaging to the psyche. Right, like the very first one is the very basic tenet of Christianity and Judaism, original sin. Right, it's this idea is baked into it that you are a corrupt, evil entity from birth because of original sin. You're corrupted, and sin entered the world, and you have a sin nature, and all of this stuff. Like it's telling you you're not a good you're good entity. You're not good because you're born. You're bad because you're born. You're destined for hell immediately unless you do the good things and unless you accept Jesus and all of that stuff.
Now,
That
the
that
L
right, LDS
again, to be
LDS may not be
fair,
the
the
same.
LDS is a little different as far as that goes. If you die before you're 8, even if you're not baptized, well, because they don't do baptisms before 8,
Right,
you're below the age of accountability. So it's like
right,
it's more like you were never born or something. I mean, I'm not saying you necessarily go to the highest heaven because there are 3,
but
but
the message is still that you'll eventually become responsible for your sins. Just
mhm,
because you were
yeah,
born, just because you're alive, you will eventually be set up to go to hell. If you die
yeah,
before 8 for the Mormons, I know there's always an age of accountability, or not always, but many there's an age of accountability.
yeah.
And most even like the Catholics believe that infants go to heaven. Like there used to be purgatory, but they got rid of that for some reason. I just liked
Yeah,
purgatory.
religions love getting rid of little bits and pieces like, "Oh, we were wrong about that."
Yeah.
How were you wrong if God told you that? Was he wrong? No, he wasn't wrong. We were wrong.
Well, on top of this underlying principle that you're evil, corrupt being just for being born, you also got the message that you're in. even more evil, corrupt being who has to atone for all these things because you're a woman,
Oh, yes, of course.
just like Eve. So you inherited not only original sin, but also you're a woman, so you have to everything else gets piled on top of you.
Yeah, especially women because we were the tempters and we were the ones who caused the man to sin, or at least woman caused man to sin. And so we're naturally worse somehow. But God made us this way, theoretically. I mean, like, if the God thing is true, this is how he made us. And then they pull out well, free will. I'm like, is it free will if he knows everything we're going to do before we do it?
That always seems to me to be a tactic of divine absolution compulsion. Like they have to find a way to absolve their divine being of any wrongdoing or evil, even though he says he makes the evil.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Which they'll deny until you actually show them the verse and then they'll find some other way to justify it. I mean, I just
Right.
cognitive dissonance, it's a puzzler, man.
Cognitive dissonance is a way of trying to help protect us from uh, unknown dangers. Right? If our ancient ancestors being out in the say in the middle of the woods, right? If a bush starts rustling, and I think that that bush has a predator in it, and I back up and get myself to safety, and a little bunny rabbit jumps out, no harm, no foul. I'm okay. But if I think that it's just a bunny rabbit and I don't do anything, and a mountain lion jumps out, well, I'm screwed. So it's always better for me to expect the worst. And if somebody else says, well, no, it's just a bunny rabbit in there, no, I can't afford to take that chance. That's what the cognitive dissonance is. It's that I can't afford to take the chance that that I'm wrong about this. And that's the biggest problem. It makes them dishonest interlocutors. I am the first one to admit to myself and to everyone else that I could be wrong, because I could be wrong about everything. I could be wrong about anything at any given time. The only thing I don't think that I could be wrong about is the fact that I am experiencing right now. This is the only thing I'm 100% convinced of. Everything else, I could be wrong. I might be 99.999999 repeating percent convinced that I'm right, but there's always a chance. I'm always willing to admit that. But the cognitive dissonance forces especially the apologists, to shut down any kind of uh, challenge to their beliefs, and
And
they
you
want to
see
ask
it
us if we're
happening.
right, and they want to ask us if we're open minded. Like, are you open to having your mind changed? What that question is, are you willing to convert to my religion?
Yeah.
Not just to Christianity, to my version of Christianity. That's what "are you willing to have your mind changed" means. Like, that's been my opinion. But let's talk a little bit about mental health. We've been talking a lot about the religious journey and religion.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the mental health side of things. Um, Prior to you said we got kind of several phases in
Yeah.
your state. We've got kind of childhood, and then there's the push to believe, and then
Mhm.
and then kind of shift away from church, and then deconstruction. Right, if that's accurate.
Yeah.
Um,
That's pretty close. And, I have struggled with my mental health in phases, sometimes more and sometimes less throughout my life from the time I was a kid. And I definitely think religion has always had a hand in that.
hmm, in what ways?
Well, I think like I touched on when I was a kid, it was mostly that I never fit in. I never seemed to be able to understand the right way to behave, the way everybody seemed to expect me to behave a certain way, or ask certain questions or not ask other questions, and I never was what they expected. And in a religion particularly, I mean, a lot of religions, Christian religions, but LDS especially, uniqueness is not valued. Weirdness is not valued, and I enjoyed being weird. That was slapped down a lot. I My exuberance was restrained. My imagination was curtailed because I thought of weird things that some people might call demonic. I mean, I literally would like if we were just told to draw something and I drew a scary monster and one of my primary teachers was like, "Why would you draw something so demonic at a primary event?" And I'm like, "It's just a monster. It's just
Right.
you said I could draw whatever I wanted." But I never seemed to understand the way I was supposed to behave. And as I grew older, it kind of seemed like I was supposed to be getting these messages or something about what I was supposed to be like and what I was supposed to do because everybody else seemed to get it and I didn't. And just the constant feelings of inadequacy that I wasn't doing it right, that I was breaking the rules and I didn't understand why the rules were there and just the constant bombardment of you're not enough. You're not good enough, you're not trying hard enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not enough. And, you know, it
Suppress
made me
yourself.
yeah.
Message, suppress yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Make yourself smaller because you're too much for everybody. But at the same time, you're not right. You're not the ways in which the things that I felt were most me were the ones that everybody seemed to not want me to display. Like the questions. I asked questions because I wanted to know. And I was being told, "Yeah, questions are fine, but don't actually ask them." I mean, there was like a double thing. Like I would say, "Am I not supposed to be asking questions?" Of course you can ask questions. We're just not going to give you any answers. Was the unspoken second half of that. And so by the time I was a teenager, I had terrible self-esteem issues. And when my depression and anxiety really started in earnest, in adolescence, as it tends to do, a lot of my inadequacy that fueled that was because I wasn't what my parents expected. I wasn't what they wanted. I wasn't what they imagined when they held their little baby girl in their arms. I was this chunky little weirdo who wore all black and listened to depressing music, you know?
That fits a mold. Um, there was a time in my life when it was all depressing music and black clothes too.
Yeah.
That was 5 minutes ago for me.
Well, I mean, clearly the black hasn't gone far.
True.
I do listen to
It
less
goes with it.
depressing music now, though,
I do too. Yeah. But
or
black
at
goes
least
with everything.
a
So
greater variety, anyway.
a greater variety of sad, sad songs. And I like some happy songs too. I'm a huge dork. Uh, but the suppression of yourself, it's well before you even start, before you even have to worry about like being in the closet as a queer individual.
Right.
You had to be in the closet as just a questioning individual.
Yeah, no,
And
it's true. I was constantly being told that I didn't fit in and that I was supposed to fit in and that me not fitting in was something wrong with me. Why aren't you more like Tiffany? Why aren't you more like Candace? You know?
right,
I mean, my
always
parents
comparing to everybody else.
again, to be fair, my parents never said anything of the sort to me. This was other people that would be like, if you want to be friends, why can't you if you want friends, why can't you make friends with the little girls in your ward group? Because they think I'm weird too. And it's probably because you think I'm weird.
It might be because you were weird, but there's nothing
Well,
wrong with weird. Weird is good. Weird is
yeah.
good.
No, I agree. I teach that to my kids and I have witnessed them being called weird and they say, "Oh, thank you," it really, really puzzles the bullies because
It
they were
does.
trying to insult and they're like, "Oh, thank you." I've seen it happen. It's a beautiful thing.
That is absolutely an amazing thing because it just stymies them. What?
Yeah, they're just like, "That
You're
wasn't a
supposed
compliment."
you're supposed to be offended. You're supposed to be offended. It's not fair.
But,
And
it's been 8 years since I lost my Zara, and, so I've been in pretty intense therapy for most of that time because that happened, and then I got divorced, and, a bunch of stuff happened all at once. So I've been in pretty intensive therapy for several years, and a lot of that has had to do with just identifying in what ways I and still suppressing myself because I was taught as a child that that was the way I was
Mhm.
supposed to be, and it's not healthy for me. I mean, I just had this construct in my head of the ideal woman, and even when I knew that I wasn't and was never going to be LDS, even when that part of the ideal woman was taken away, the rest of the construct was still there in my head,
Mhm.
waiting for me to live up to it, even though I didn't expect anyone else in the world to live up to it. I still expected myself to. And it resulted in me marrying a pretty toxic guy um, who was very into having a facilitator for a wife, we'll say. And it was unbalanced, but as I've been deconstructing and as I've been learning more from everybody here in the atheist community, I've been getting healthier and happier and more myself. I mean, since I have turned 40, I have never felt so comfortable in my own skin. I mean, I am just I didn't realize how I was dressing for other people. And even when I was dressing like counter to dressing and acting and things counter to what I was taught, that in itself was being informed by how I was raised. I wasn't choosing it for myself. I was just doing the opposite. And so figuring out all those details and my relationships with my family and with my mother who is my best friend, but we have to do this dance around religion because she's still hoping that someday I'll come back. But despite all the complications it has caused, I truly have never felt more comfortable being myself than since I have been taking all this apart in my head and realizing how it has affected me negatively and really identifying what it is I think I'm supposed to be and why it's okay that I'm not.
I think the deconstruction journey is one that from what I've seen lends to people becoming happier, becoming more in touch with who they are. And I think part of it is the focus within religion is always external. And once you begin the journey of healing, whether it's going to another religion like Buddhism or just a spiritualism or something like that, where you let go of the religious stuff, a lot of that allows you to start looking more inward. And that's where the journey really is reconnecting with yourself and letting go of the idea that you're a horrible thing just because you were born is
Right.
like that's freeing right there. And then realizing the ridiculousness of some of those stories and just
Yeah.
just how empty the threats are. Uh, it lets you do a lot of things more freely. And not like "Well, I can sin more freely, I can be more sinful." Like, no, you can enjoy your time with your family more freely because you're not worried about whether they're going to go to hell or not, or whether they're sinning or not, or whether what you do with your uh significant other that you're not married with is going to end up getting you both sent to eternal torment. Right? Like, you don't have any of that stuff going on. You can just connect with the other person. You can connect with family, and most importantly, you can connect with yourself, which I think is
Yeah.
what you've been doing.
Absolutely. I kind of swore off dating for a while after my divorce, and that has been very healing for me because a lot of one of the things I had to deprogram in myself the most is that I am supposed to be with somebody. I am an incomplete person unless I have a
Mm,
partner. Um, and that was one of the most toxic things because when I wasn't in a relationship, I was looking for a relationship. I was dressing in a way that I thought would attract people that I could be in a relationship with. And, it was just more of a focus of my life. And I didn't really spend enough time thinking about what I wanted. I just thought about what other people would want of me so that I could be in a relationship because women are supposed to be married to men. And that's
mm,
the thing too, like, I have been bi since I was a teenager, but I've always tended to date more men, and I didn't realize until these last 8 years why that was. And it was, again, because I had this construct in my mind that that was the way it was supposed to be, you know?
right.
And I didn't even realize how alive that construct was still in my mind until just recently, and it was astonishing to me. It's been a huge eye opener really delving into this stuff that I truly think I was afraid to look into because I was until I got an up close and personal view of how toxic these beliefs were and how much damage they could do, not just me, but everybody. I don't think I was quite willing to let some of that stuff go. I or maybe just not able to let it go. But I always thought, "Oh, well, their family stuff is good though." Mormons are kind of crazy, but they have good ideas about family. And then just I'm like, "No, even their ideas about family are toxic in a lot of ways."
There's very little that actually is positive out of this. I mean, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Again, that's good ish. Good ish. Kind of. I would prefer treat your neighbor as they wish to be treated. The way I want to be treated might not be the way you want to be treated.
Right.
Can't always guarantee that somebody else is going to think the same way you do.
Right.
So,
But nothing good that comes from a religion is exclusive to religion. And all of those things, I know I am a better, more honest person. I mean, this sounds so conceited, but I know I am a better, more honest person than a lot of really religious, so called spiritual people I know. Maybe that's what the armor of God is. It's armor against realizing how nasty you can be about it.
that's the head in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or up the
Like,
rear end.
it's been said so many times that they don't always realize when they're threatening people and that their
They
entire religion
can't.
is a threat. Yeah.
Yeah. Love God or you burn forever.
Even the "I'll pray for you" is a threat because I will pray that you have a change of heart and seek out Jesus so you can go to heaven and not hell. It's the threat of you're going to go to hell, so I'm going to try and help you not go to hell. But it's a threat. "I'll pray for you" is still a threat. And their whole religion. Mm,
Yeah, and I feel sorry for them, but a lot of it is so willful. I mean, I really feel like I had empathy for them too. I wish that the toxic parts of religion could just go away and they can have their happy comforting bits. But take out all the bad stuff. And I don't think that's possible. But if it were, then I wouldn't have any problem with religion. I'd be like, you believe whatever you want, honestly, if it truly isn't hurting anybody. But that's what I had to realize. It is hurting people. It's hurting a lot of people. It's hurting the people who are in it, and it's hurting the people around them.
And if someone wants to believe in a god or gods, I don't care. I'm not trying to take away somebody's belief in that unless they're trying to use it to harm others. And things
Right.
like Christian nationalism in our country, United States right now, is they're trying to I've said it before, they're trying to make the Bible our new constitution. And that's not okay. It's something that we need to stand up and talk about again, talk against.
And
Um,
yeah, I would never try and deconvert my mom because I frankly think that if she and my dad were best friends, they had one of the most wonderful relationships I've ever seen. And she's 80. And I think if I took away the belief that she would be with my dad again, that she wouldn't have much to live for, which I think is really, really sad. But at this point, it would be like hoping she has a heart attack or something. I couldn't do it, you know?
right. Yeah. People get so indoctrinated into it, it's hard to get them out of it. When they've been in for so long, there's no change. There's no can be not going to be any changing. But
And she is quite tolerant. I mean, she loves me and she knows everything about me. You know, she knows I'm queer, she knows I'm an atheist, she knows that I'm involved in the in kind of atheist outreach stuff. She knows that and she's okay with it. She she loves me for me. And so, you know, I wish more people were a little more like her and a little less like some of the some of the people we talk to.
yeah, uh, I always like to separate between the apologists and the everyday people.
Yes, that's true.
The people that call into shows like The Line or Deconstruction Zone or Bible Guide or like any of the live streams. People who call in there, they're apologists. They're trying. They're
Yeah,
actively trying to. But most Christians, most Mormons, they're well, Mormons might
they're
be a little
just
bit
living
different.
their
They
lives.
Mormons they have that missionary period they got to go on. Like there is that, but so
Yeah.
they're apologists during that time period.
Proselytizing is a big part of being a Mormon. Each one teach one.
Yeah, but a lot of Christians that just they live their life. They
Mhm.
they they go to church on Sunday. They try not to do bad things. They just try to live their lives, and I have no problem with that at all. Until we get to the Christian nationalists who are militant and trying to change things in that direction.
Right. Don't try and make your beliefs into laws unless you can demonstrate the harm they're doing. I mean, and then I'll probably agree with you if they're really truly doing harm. But the harm they point out is just, well, you won't go to heaven. That's the harm. And
Right.
that's not enough.
Well, the harm is you're going to go to hell, eternal torment,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's absolutely horrible. But it's baked in. But that is baked into everything with Christianity. And some say like putting the Ten Commandments in schools isn't about religion; it's about rules and right and wrong. Except that the first four rules are about sucking God's dick. You know,
Exactly.
I don't want to teach kids that. I really
No.
don't. I don't want to
No,
teach kids that. I also
blind
don't.
submission is always a bad thing.
Right. And I absolutely think we should not be teaching kids that they're corrupt, sinful, evil little critters just because they're human, just because they were born. And that's terrible to teach kids.
And we should definitely not be teaching that the Bible is a good place to get your morality from because
Oh, it's
it's
not.
not. It
It's not.
sucks.
It's not. Most of the Christians and apologists, especially the apologists, they don't realize how much their morality comes from enlightenment principles and not from the Bible.
Mhm.
They it's difficult having some of those conversations. I love the conversations. I love having them. I especially love the morality conversations because I am a moral subjective relativist.
Yeah.
Right? morals have to be objective because the things that are immoral are themselves subjective. Like each thing, like murder is a subjective thing. Rape is a subjective thing. Like
Well, I can't
it
actually
is,
think of
it is,
single.
it, yeah, grape, so to speak, is a subjective because consent comes from the mind. You cannot have consent without a mind.
Right. So in that way, yeah, I can see how it is mind dependent.
Yeah.
I can't think of a situation where rape would be an acceptable thing though.
I'm not saying it's acceptable. It's just it's
No.
not objective. It
No, yeah, no, I'm thinking of how the theists tend to point out, "Oh, you your morality is subjective." What they mean by it is
is
that
arbitrary.
exactly, exactly.
They mean arbitrary. It's not. It's just dependent on a mind for existence, not arbitrary. Oh, it's just
Right.
an opinion. It's just an opinion. So's yours.
Yeah, but
Morality is
mind
opinion.
even even in their worldview, like even if they were right and God exists, their morality is subjective because it's dependent on the subject is God.
Yeah. And it would still be just an opinion. It'd just be God's opinion,
Hmm.
right? But
And,
their
with
values.
divine command theory, God can't have an opinion that's bad, but it's still an opinion. And they can't say he doesn't change his mind because he does it throughout the Bible, though they really hate it when you point that
Oh,
out.
they hate it when you point out. Don't read the book to a Christian. Don't read their own book to them. They hate that.
Oh no, they hate it when you do that because
And they're
they'll tell
terrified of it
you
too.
they'll tell you you're taking it out of context, and they'll tell you you're reading it with a cynical heart.
Oh, and they don't
What
care.
context?
They don't actually care about context.
No.
Every time someone says you're taking that out of context, I want to ask them about Isaiah 53. Who's the suffering servant? Because
Mhm.
guaranteed they'll say Jesus, but that's taking it out of context. Because the previous like 8 chapters, the suffering servant is specifically referenced as Israel 8 times. Why should I believe that it's different? I always love this analogy. I'm like, if I'm reading the Harry Potter books and from chapter 40 through 52, it's Harry Potter is the chosen one every single time it's referenced. Why would I think that in chapter 53, the chosen one is suddenly Luke Skywalker? Not even from the same book, not even from the
Right.
same universe. Like it doesn't make sense. It's taking it out of context. They don't like context. And also Psalm 22 completely out of context. Like they don't care about context unless you're the one saying it. If it disagrees with them, it's out of context. If it agrees with them, context doesn't matter.
Right. Mhm. And then you can also ask, what context am I missing? And they can never tell you
No, no, they can't.
what
It's
context. What context makes slavery okay? What context makes rape okay? What context makes murder okay?
right there. Well, when it comes to things like murder, context actually is hugely impactful because
Yeah,
is it murder or not? Is it murder? Is it self defense? Is it manslaughter? Like there's all sorts of gradients to it.
exactly.
That's why when we get to
Killing.
murder, right? It's an
Yeah,
unjustified or unlawful killing. Now, law, subjective. It's all in our heads. They don't exist in reality. Justification, all in our heads. Doesn't exist in reality. It's all subjective. So, murder is a subjective thing. And if murder itself is subjective, the moral value behind it also subjective. Has to be.
do you think that maintaining these levels of cognitive dissonance has a long-term effect on, say, their ability to really understand truth from fiction? Because most like flat earthers are also Christian, you know
Mm-hmm.
like I it seems like having to maintain that level of cognitive dissonance just makes them open to all sorts of ridiculous notions, at least some of them, not all of them, obviously. But, I mean, not believing science and well, believing that Trump is a decent person and good for the country. And it seems like to make religion even work as a worldview, you have to open yourself up to a lot of other dangerous nonsense at the same time.
The cognitive dissonance reinforces the ideas, and then the ideas reinforce the cognitive dissonance, and it becomes a
Mhm.
vicious cycle that creates a pattern of thinking that becomes really hard to break out of. Um, and yeah, when it comes to that pattern of thinking, the cognitive dissonance blinds them and pushes them into denial areas. We all suffer from that in certain areas of our life. Like
Certainly.
there's always going to be things that we believe so deeply that anything that challenges that is met with cognitive dissonance and denial. Right? All of
Personally, I
us.
am completely convinced that because I always put well, almost always put my cart back in the corral, that's why I get better than average parking at the grocery store. I am 100% convinced of this. I know it's silly. I know it's ridiculous. I know it probably isn't true. But in my mind, every time I'm tempted to not put my cart back, I'm like, do you really want to park at the back of the parking lot next time? No, you don't. Put your cart back. But that kind of cognitive dissonance isn't hurting anyone.
Right. That kind of cognitive dissonance is not hurting anyone. It's the baked in, built in cognitive dissonance along with echo chambers that
Mhm.
end up reinforcing all of these ideas over and over and over again. And then they become so deeply ingrained, they become part of the core story, the core narrative of the person's life. And
Which almost makes you kinda think, well, apologists at least are seeking out different points of view, but they're not
they're not.
really.
They're not. They're not seeking out different points of view. They're seeking to try and change other people's view to their own.
Yeah.
I think that that's one of the differences between the atheist community, as far as I've seen, and the apologist community, so to speak, is the apologists go out trying to change people's minds to bring them in, and
Mhm.
the atheists let people come to them. Like, if you're coming to me, I will challenge all of your beliefs. I will
Yeah.
try to change you if you come to me, but I'm not going to go seeking you out. Like, I personally, I'm going to go this Sunday. I'm going to go over to a local church with a sign that just says "Ask an Atheist." I'm just going to sit there for a couple of hours and see if anybody comes over to talk. But I'm just going to be available. I'm not going to be trying to change their minds. I just want to see
Mhm.
what questions they might have for me, if any of them might, because some of them might be considering uh, beginning their deconstruction. Some of them might be in the middle of deconstruction and not know where they can turn. And I'd like to
Right.
be available for them.
Mhm.
Is That's the thing that I've learned in my journey in this community, is not to be silent about it anymore, because I don't respect it. I've learned so much about the religion and how damaging and dirty it is, and it itself is awful, that I do not respect it. I cannot respect it. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to stay silent when it about things that I don't respect anymore.
Mhm. What little good it does not outweigh all the bad.
No, it doesn't. Like, I used to think that some atheists were like heavy-handed with their atheism, like um, uh, Seth MacFarlane. Seth MacFarlane, big time atheist.
Mhm.
Some of the stuff that he put into Family Guy, I was happy to see kind of atheist themed stuff, but some of it,
Yeah.
even then, like in the mid 2000s, I was stuck in this view of I can't, I'm in a bubble, I can't say anything because everybody else is going to get upset, and then seeing stuff
Yeah.
like on Family Guy, they went back. Brian and Stewie were traveling through time. They went back and accidentally, stopped religion from happening, and they got back to the present. And everything was like thousands of years further advanced in the future. And I was just like, yeah, probably. But did you have to say that out loud? Like, you're supposed to keep that quiet. That's what I would think back then. Thinking back on that now, I'm like, oh, sweet summer child, you should have been on board with that. Like,
Yeah.
it's practically true. There was a period where religion literally, the Christian religion literally destroyed technology that wouldn't be rebuilt for hundreds of years in
Yeah.
Europe.
No,
Like,
I and it's happened more than once. Um, the book burnings in Nazi Germany was another aspect of that. We lost so much science and literature
Hmm.
during that time, and
Oh,
that, you know.
we've lost several time periods like that. In the Renaissance, there was the Bonfire of the Vanities in Florence, where they were bringing all kind of paintings and books and works of art were being brought out because they weren't Christian enough, or they were being seen as if they were Christian themed, they were idols and graven images, and they needed to be destroyed. So they were just throwing them onto bonfires all throughout the city. It was horrible. We lost so much art and history right in there. And the Nazis, they're not the only ones. This happened been happening for centuries. And things challenge the church. The church squashes them.
Well, they don't want people distracted. They want people for the church to be the center of existence. And the reason they're scrambling now, and that's what this is, I think. This is the death throes of the far Christian right, I believe. This is their push because they're really starting to feel like threatened. And so this is the resurgence before the end. I don't think all religion, obviously, but I think the fundamentalist Christian, the really high demand Christian religions are being phased out, and that's terrifying to believers. And so there's this pushback, and that's what we're seeing now. And but if we're not careful, they'll win.
Religion just seems to be it's prevalent everywhere in our society right now, especially in America. Christianity is just prevalent. And it's so prevalent that uh, trying to heal through deconstruction can be more difficult when everything, especially for people who have a deep religious trauma, churches can be triggering of that. Like just the
Right.
symbol of a crucifix or cross might be enough to send somebody into panic attacks from religious trauma. But it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. You can't, in some areas, you can't drive down a street without passing 6 or 7 churches.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, I live in a town like that.
yeah. So the symbolism is everywhere. And even when you get past that, you get into even pop culture stuff includes elements of Christianity. It's embedded in places and
Oh, absolutely.
can be triggering, very triggering. And I think
I
that
mean,
that's
what stars don't thank Jesus, when they win awards or make a touchdown, you know?
right. Yeah. Oh yeah, you did all the work, but give the glory to God. You did all the
Yeah.
work, but yeah. But you never see the losing team go, "Fuck God, he took our victory from us." You never see
Well, of
that.
course you can't do that.
Right? No, I can't do that. Right. But the prevalence of it must make recovery from religious trauma much harder. And just
Yeah, and in a way, I think it's harder not to when it's so prevalent, it's kind of like getting over an addiction. Y Except you can't get away from it. It's like a food addiction or something. You still have to eat, you still have to function around food and somehow deal with this addiction. I think in some small ways that there's some similarities when you're deconstructing from religion, because the dopamine hits you got from religion, even if you weren't getting them for a long time, are still tempting, and you see other people maybe getting them because you see other people acting like they're happy in religion. And I've often thought that in many ways, despite the difficulties, I was lucky to never really have had a testimony. One step was taken out for me. The very first step kind of was automatic in my brain, and I've actually thought that I might be lucky in that way.
that might have been a lucky break, and you didn't have an experience that felt unexplainable. and became attributed and we tied in. I think that's a problem that people have is my experience. I had this experience, so it must be real.
Right. Yeah.
But
I can't explain it, so God done it.
right. But I've been through plenty of things that seemed unexplainable and they all had explanations.
Right.
Every one of them. I saw a UFO once right outside of my house. During broad daylight. A big little shiny thing like darting around in the sky.
But
My
I bet
dad's
it did get explained eventually.
my dad got his binoculars and we found it was a hummingbird flying at about 500 feet, reflecting the light. It
Oh,
was zipping
wow.
all over the place because it was a hummingbird,
Mhm.
like, moving really fast, and it was just catching and reflecting the light from the sun because it was had shiny feathers. That's what it was. UFO. But before we got the binoculars, we couldn't tell what it was, and it was making all sorts of weird aerial maneuvers. My dad's a pilot, or was a pilot, a long time ago, and he knew like planes don't fly like that. What is it? That's why he got his binoculars. Then we found out what it was. That's the thing. It's always like that. The gaps, the great giant gaping maw of ignorance that used to exist when the Bible was written, has been filled in
Yeah.
quite a bit. And
I
now,
mean, earthquakes. Before we discovered plate tectonics, people didn't know why they happened. People had no idea. And it was just an act of God. But they did have an explanation. We just didn't know it
we
yet.
we didn't know what the explanation was, and then we found it, and we know what it is now. And now we know it's not God. But that's always the thing. We have a phenomena, we don't know what it is, so it's attributed to God or supernatural things. Then we find out more about what the phenomena is, and we learn what it is in the natural world, and no longer supernatural. There is no supernatural because if there was, and we're able to detect it and manipulate it, it becomes considered natural. Right? It's all part of the natural world, right? If if we lived in the Ghostbusters universe and we had a PKE meter, could pull the PKE meter and find ghosts, ghosts would be natural.
Yes.
We would consider ghosts to be natural because we'd have science to be able to find them, to examine them, to look at them. We have classifications for them. They did have classifications in the movies. But like we'd have all of this stuff. We'd be able to see it. We don't. Not in this world. I wish we lived in Ghostbusters. I would love to have a proton pack. I would love to have a proton pack, a PKE
Yeah,
meter
I'm
trap.
a
I
kid of
would
the
be.
80s. Of course I wanted to be a Ghostbuster.
Who didn't?
I liked Ghostbusters so much, I even liked the all-female cast version of Ghostbusters. I thought
I
it was
like that.
charming.
It was different. I think there was a lot of really toxic masculine pushback against it because it was a primarily female cast. I
Mhm.
thought that was brilliant. Melissa McCarthy's amazing in everything she does. I think she's just phenomenal.
Leslie Jones is wonderful
Leslie
too.
Jones is wonderful, and I loved the cameos from like Bill
Yeah.
Murray and Sigourney Weaver,
Mhm.
Dan Aykroyd. Like I loved that, but the tone of that movie was very different from the original two.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wasn't mad at that. I think if they
No,
tried too hard to just remake the movie with girls, that would have been a problem.
yeah, I see it as a different, like it's a completely different universe. It's not the same,
Mhm.
but like I love the two more recent ones they made, Afterlife and Frozen Empire. Like those
I
were
have not seen
phenomenal.
those yet, so I have to
They're
watch those.
mm, every time I watch Afterlife, I cry at the end. I do. I cry at the end. It's wonderful. I love it. Um, it's just a wonderful movie. And then the next one is great too. Paul Rudd's amazing in both of those.
I love
Uh,
Paul Rudd,
oh
so
yeah, I love those movies. Paul Rudd is I'm convinced Paul Rudd is Melchizedek.
well,
He's
obviously
the
he doesn't
immortal,
age.
right? He's the immortal, ageless man with no
Yes.
parent. Like he just exists.
Mhm.
Also known as Tom Bombadil in Middle Earth. Like you just Paul Rudd is just the eternal man.